Checking. Alrighty, there we go. Alrighty, hey everybody, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. And welcome to another Doodle a Day. We are on day 6 right now. Hi Bonnie, glad to see you on. I'm so glad you're here. So if you're just jumping on right now, go ahead and tell me where you're watching from. And what is your favorite fall food? Go ahead and put that in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. This is the doodle we'll be working on today. I'm really glad to have you guys here. It's a sweet little pumpkin. I've cut it out kind of wonky on my piece of paper, but if you'd like to download this tracer, I'm going to go ahead and cut this a little bit. If you'd like to go ahead and download this tracer, all you need to do is go to my bio if you're on Instagram, or you can go to my previous post on Facebook, and you can download it. Just click that link. It'll ask for your email and name, and you will put that in. Even if you put it in before, it won't double up. It doesn't do anything weird. All that does is make sure you get access to that printable, and that's a printable PDF. So it's super easy to just click it and download it and then print it, and it's totally free for you guys. If you're on YouTube, it should be in the description of this video. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it, but first of all, as usual, I want to start with some scripture, and we are in the Sermon on the Mount this month. And hello, Pam, watching on Instagram. Thanks so much for being here. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and say hello. I want to make sure that I'm seeing you guys come through, and make sure I am live on Artworthy Life. I'd like to know that I'm live in the right place. Alrighty, Bonnie says she's in Florida. I love all the pumpkin things that are out. Ooh, Bonnie, do you like pumpkin spice? Are you one of those people love pumpkin spice? Oh, just one second. I'm going to make sure this is where you guys can see and everything is working. And tell me if you like pumpkin spice lattes, or if you are a apple cider girl. I really like cider, and ever since my friends gave me like homemade apple cider, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Hello, I see somebody from Artistic Art Materials is joining us. Hello, thank you for watching. Please tell me where you're watching from. We're going to go ahead and keep reading in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, and then we'll get right into this little doodle a day. Oh, Tammy says she is an apple cider girl. I love it. I love it. All right, starting in verse 21, and here's what it says. Oh, let me make sure. Yes, okay. I'm making sure that's the verse we left off in. Hi, Anita. Good morning. Alrighty, starting in verse 21. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there remember that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. I just love that scripture. I love that scripture that encourages us to reconcile with the people that we love. Isn't that beautiful? I think, even if you're not a Christian, that's just such a great policy, because it encourages peace and, joy in your life in the most profitable way. Just being able to live peacefully with all people. Alrighty, so that is such a great scripture. If you have not read through the Sermon on the Mount, I hope that you're joining us every day to get to hear it here. Hi, Jackie, good morning. And she is at Sisters in Sisters, Oregon. I'm so glad to see you made it safely and that you were able to figure out how to jump on today. That's awesome. Alrighty, if you are not already aware, we have this pumpkin tracer available. And I just mentioned where to get it, but I'm going to go ahead and start tracing it onto our piece of watercolor paper. So I have some carbon paper or graphite paper, and I'm going to put that face down onto my little watercolor card here. And just a reminder, these pieces of watercolor paper are sized to 2 inches by 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And so they're all consistent size, and that makes for really fun little doodles. Okay, I'm going to try to angle this a little differently than it actually shows here. And then I like to use mechanical pencil, as you guys know, and that really helps to keep the lines nice and fine. Bonnie was just asking, how do we make sure that we don't have really dark pencil lines? And I thought that was such a great question, so I'll just answer that again here for anybody that wonders. First of all, if I am freehanding my drawing, I always draw it on a separate piece of paper. I almost always draw it on a separate piece of paper, even though it's my original drawing. And I basically make my own tracer, and then I trace that on with carbon paper. And the reason is, and I think I mentioned this one of the days before, if you are to draw your original drawing on your watercolor paper and you're doing a lot of erasing, you can make all these like black smudges and messy parts of your paper and kind of damage your watercolor paper before you ever even start painting. So you really don't want to do that. You want to keep it nice and fresh. So I will often freehand, just like I did this little pumpkin, and then I will trace it on. So even though I'm using my original design, I will still use it as though it's a tracer. So that's one tip. Another tip is that you want to use a fine tip pencil. Leslie Ann is having trouble downloading the picture again. That is so interesting. So I tested it this morning and it did download. Do you have another device that you might be able to download it on? Or maybe go to the file. You have an iPad. Did you go to the files section of your iPad, like with the little folder? Because it doesn't send it to pictures. It sends it to your files on your phone. So it's actually like a little folder icon. You click on that and it'll be in there. Otherwise, it'll take you to a page. So I'm not sure which one it will do on your iPad, but just tell me if it opens for you. I'm sorry it's not working for you. It was working on 2 different devices here at my house. So can anybody else tell me if they downloaded the tracer and if it was working? Because it may be an issue on my end, but so far it seemed like it was working on my end. Okay, so my second tip on like not letting your pencil lines show is to use a mechanical pencil because the lines are so fine. And I mean use it if you're tracing or if you are freehanding. All right, let me peek and see if I got all the lines here. Okay, I did. And then my last tip is to just look at your tracer your design that you've traced down and make sure the lines are not too dark before you ever even start. So if your lines are too dark already, you may want to erase some of the darkest lines. Now, thankfully on this one, I did it nice and light and it did not do super dark lines, but a lot of times when I'm tracing, I forget to press lightly and then the lines will be really dark. So it's a good idea to erase a little bit before you start. Leave it where you can see it, but erase a little bit so that your lines are not really, really harsh. Good morning, Twyla. She's watching from her chair and drinking tea. That's great. I was drinking tea this morning as well. What kind of tea do you like? What's your favorite? This morning I'm drinking Tension Tamer, which I always describe Tension Tamer as like, I used to use Sleepy Time and that was really good, but it makes you sleepy. So it's great for bedtime, but not for other times where you want to be relaxed, but you don't want to fall asleep. So it's like all the best parts of a Sleepy Time type tea, only you can drink it any time of day. And I like the flavor way better. Good morning, Miss Leslie, watching from Veneta. I'm so glad you're on today. Okay, Bonnie says about the download for the PDF. She says, I had trouble with my tablet, then it worked when I tried with my phone. So maybe Leslie Ann, try another device. Hopefully you'll be able to download that. Alrighty, so I have my tiny little brushes again. If you have anything this size, that would work great. This one is from Master's Touch, and these 2 are by Liquitex. I got these 2 secondhand, so I'm not sure exactly where the best place is to get them, but I just want to hold them there so you guys can see kind of next to my fingers how big they are. So real small brushes. I don't really get a lot of big brushes for these tiny doodles. And Terry Watson says, good morning from across the street on my sofa drinking sweet coffee. Oh, yum. Thank you for watching, Terry, and good morning. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and jump right in now. I want to tell you guys something. You have some options today, and that is we are going to be painting an orange, we're going to be painting not an orange pumpkin. We're going to be painting a blue pumpkin, a turquoisey pumpkin. So let me show you some of our prior doodles. If you've been missing them, I hope that you go back and watch the replay. Whoops, I got to reach behind me because all my stuff is behind me. Alrighty, let me show you guys this little doodle that we have so far. I want to give you guys a little bit of a review. And the reason for that is these are still available for you to go and watch. So I want you to know that they're there. And also I want you to see the trend. Twyla says, no problem with the download on this end. She has an Android phone. Okay, so the download is working okay for some people. Alrighty, here's day one. Again, just by way of review. This was a really fun one. And then here is day, whoops, where is day two? Here is day two. Right here, and you'll notice we have similar colors happening right there. And then we have for day three, our little truckload of pumpkins. So you'll notice this truckload of pumpkins was the first time we implemented that teal color. And then we had our little deer with some leaves. I love that deer. And then lastly, we had this basket of apples. So what we're gonna do today is pull in this teal color, And I actually meant to pull in this teal color, I think the day before. So anyway, we're out of order, but it doesn't matter. It'll all look cohesive. So we're gonna have some of this teal color in this pumpkin here. And so I'm gonna keep this truck nearby to make sure my color is consistent across the board. Twyla says, my favorite is lavender chamomile. Wow. Does anybody else like lavender? I've heard some people really don't like floral flavors like to drink. I like lavender and I do like chamomile, but I would say I like lavender better than chamomile. And then she also says, this is jasmine green. That's the tea? Oh, jasmine green tea? Ooh, I love the smell of jasmine. Smells so good. Hi, Daniel. Good morning. Oh, and then Twyla hasn't done the umbrella yet. Okay, so yeah, go back and watch that one. And you can find it on YouTube or on Facebook. I actually don't think it broadcast to Instagram that day because I wasn't quite on Instagram yet. But we're working on technology as we go. All right, I'm going to move this truck out of the way, but just so you guys know, I'm going to keep it nearby. So if you've already done your truck, grab it and keep it nearby, and that will make your colors stay consistent. So we're going to start with azurite blue. And for the azurite blue, I watered it down just a little bit, but I also added a tiny bit of green to it. So grab a green that you think is brighter, and we have a good one that's called Peak Green in my Como Rebbe Mozart watercolor set, if you are using that one. And I just mixed in a little tiny bit of that to make it less, I didn't want it so blue. I wanted it a little less blue. And also, just another thing you can do is have a reference photo nearby of some blue pumpkins. And you can just type blue pumpkin into your browser, and that will give you some really good pictures. And I do have a picture of pumpkins up right now so that I can see them. Okay, yes, Miss Leslie, she says color match. Exactly, that's what we're doing. So, let me back this up so that's not in your way. Alrighty, starting with that color, I'm gonna water it down quite a bit, and I'm using my biggest brush. And we're just gonna go straight in with the first layer of color on this pumpkin, mostly on the outside of the pumpkin, the little bumps of the pumpkin. So kind of on the outside here. And I'm gonna water it down even more because that's a little darker than I want it for the first layer of color. So mostly on the outside of the pumpkin right now, leaving a little bit of white space. And coming around. So you'll notice there's little curly vines and stuff coming out from the pumpkin, from the stem and from the bottom. Those are going to be a little bit darker in color, so if you end up painting over where they are, don't worry about it too much. We'll come back to those, and they will still show up even though they're, colored over a little bit. And then as you come down these little curves, you can leave a little bit of space between them. On a painting this small, that extra white space, just a little bit of extra, is going to help your eyes see the shape. So I'm not just leaving white space on the inside, I'm also leaving it kind of on the edges of each of these little bumps. So you see those white edges I'm leaving on the sides there? Let me point at it. Right here and right here. I'm leaving just a little bit of white space there. And pumpkins are so forgiving, so don't be super critical of yourself on these areas. You can just start painting them in and kind of just let your brush skip a little bit, hop and skip and jump. And as long as you're leaving behind some space, that will be great. Okay, and I'm gonna kind of just monitor, okay, am I close to that color? Yes, I'm pretty close to that color. So just watch, watch your other painting, try to get them to match as closely as you can. How many of you guys decorate with pumpkins at fall time or during the holidays? Do you guys use pumpkins as decorations or do you have fake pumpkins? I should ask, yeah, you should put fake or real in the comments, depending on like what pumpkin you use. I think I use a combination. It depends on if we have real pumpkins available. I can't help but be like, oh, it feels wasteful to use a real pumpkin as just decoration, but you can always carve pumpkins or something. Daniel says real. Okay. Carved though, right? Or just the pumpkin. We have little tiny volunteer pumpkin something. They're like some kind of a combination and they're white. So they make great decor for inside. So a lot of times we leave them on the counter or whatever just for decorations. We're really not even sure if we should eat them. I don't think we should. Bonnie says fake. Okay. What makes you like the fake ones, Bonnie? My answer to that question, which is you can do it once and they last forever. The big ones are carved, but little ones get used for decor, Daniel says. Aha, see? The little ones are so cute, though. I think I have a vivid memory of the first little tiny pumpkin I painted. And, we got it somewhere at a fair or something and brought it home. And those pumpkins lasted forever on the counter. I don't remember them getting squishy. I think we finally just threw them out because they lasted such a long time. And Terry Watson says real. Yes, she uses real pumpkins. Real big pumpkins or little pumpkins? Do you decorate them too, like with ribbons and things? She's pretty crafty. Okay, we're gonna fill in this last little one. I had to mix myself up some more teal and make sure it had a little bit of green added to it. So there's that first layer of teal, turquoise, whatever you want to call it. It's less turquoise, it's more teal. Bonnie says same answer as you. Okay, so you keep it because you do it once and it lasts. Yes. Anita says, I like the fake. I can use them longer. Okay, See, I think it just depends on like how involved you are in your pumpkin painting. Now, I didn't really paint or carve pumpkins until we moved out here to Oregon, and friends of ours carve pumpkins every year and paint them. And then I got real involved in my pumpkin painting, even though they were fake. And so I've painted some really interesting pumpkins now that we've lived out here. But I've painted one with gold and put really pretty gold ribbon on it and like decorated it like crazy, only to watch it get mushy. And I thought, oh no, I should have done a fake one. Terry says all sizes, yes, ribbons. And sometimes she carves them. Very cool. Okay, so we're adding a little bit of shading to this pumpkin, as you can see. And this is the point at which you probably want to have a reference photo of some kind. We're just going to do kind of the edges of this pumpkin and all the little areas where we think, okay, less light is going to hit that. So especially in the little crevices down here where the bumps kind of meet together. I don't know what to call these little bumps, but anyway, the little pumpkin's shape comes together like that. And that's going to be a little bit more shaded, obviously, because it's down in the little hole. So we're going to add darker teal to those little divots like that. So see that? And while it's wet, I'm adding that in. I'm actually going to flip this upside down so my hand has a better time. Terry says she has a fake one too. Okay. Hi, Emily. Wow. Thank you for watching on Instagram. Welcome. We are painting a teal pumpkin. You should tell me, Emily, you're pretty savvy on decor. What kind of pumpkins do you use to decorate at Christmas or Christmas? In the holidays? Do you use fake pumpkins or do you use real pumpkins? We're having a fake versus real debate over here. Not a debate, but yeah, it is interesting. Some people are like diehard, like, do not use a fake pumpkin. That's just not right. And I'm like, have you seen the fake pumpkins at Hobby Lobby? Just saying. They're really cute. Okay, putting a little bit of shadow in this little crevice here. And remember earlier I mentioned leaving some white space on the edge of that bump there. And you'll notice that white space is so much more accentuated when there's dark shadow right next to it. So sometimes it's a good idea, especially on a small painting, to just think, okay, where am I going to put a really dark shadow? And then put a really light something right next to it, a really light, bright spot of color. Okay, I'm mixing up just a little bit more of this teal as I go, and I'm going to use my smallest brush and just touch inside that inner curve just a little. I am painting upside down. I hope that's not bothering people. But that is because I'm all about keeping your hand comfortable. So the more comfortable your hand is, the better your painting will turn out. You definitely don't want your hand to be cramping up in the middle of your painting. And so since I'm right-handed, I'm pulling the color to the right-hand side, and that's just easier to do upside down for this curve of the pumpkin. Look at that. I'm going to flip it over so you can kind of see how it's coming along. Look at that. Ah, I love painting pumpkins. I love painting pumpkins. You guys like this so far? Give me a pumpkin in the comments if you like this so far. You guys found some cute pumpkin emojis. You'll have to tell me if you find anything that's not like a normal pumpkin. Like I don't know, we had a jack-o'-lantern and something else, maybe. Okay, mixing this up. And so if you're just joining, the color I'm using is azurite blue, and I'm mixing in a little bit of peak green to keep it from being too blue. So I'm making it even more teal-y colored. And that's to match the truck that we did a couple of days ago. And I'm mixing it with my bigger brush and then coming in with my smaller brush to do deeper shading. All right, watering it down. And I'm going to start in on the next little bump, and it's just kind of the same process over and over again. On this front one, we're going to see a little bit more of it, so I want to give it a little bit more detail, and I especially want to fill in the bottom part of it. I got a little bit of teal where I didn't want it down here, so I'm going to brush that up like that, and then use my cloth to just soak it up. I love watercolors because if you get it where you don't want it, you can kind of scrub it off real fast and it works. Okay, so I'm going to give it a little shadow right here. Little shadow kind of down the middle because there is a little ridge on the pumpkins that I used as a reference photo, and it runs kind of down the middle of it, like a little dimple, an extra little dimple down the center. And then I'm going to use a wet, clean brush and fade out that darker shading with that wet, clean brush. So you can kind of brush the color around without adding any more pigment. See that? Really pretty. Oh, I love pumpkins. Oh, Terry gave me a pumpkin comment. Somehow I'm not able to see what Daniel just commented. I think it's because it's an emoji, so I will have to look at it on the other page. I am going through my fancy handy dandy StreamYard, and I don't always see every comment. So let me see if I can see things. Okay. And Leslie says, you are welcome to share my little sign in case others may need your artwork for a project. Thank you so much. It's actually not with me. It's downstairs. So I couldn't hold it up if I wanted to. But thank you. I will have to post a photo of it. I really enjoyed making that. So that was really fun. Let's see. What else did I miss on the comments? Can I see anything else? Oh, it might be a GIF, I'm guessing. Okay. Well, I'm sorry I'm not seeing your little little cute comments. I'll have to look at them later. Alrighty. Oh, Bonnie's got 3 little jack-o'-lanterns. How cute. Alrighty. I'm going to add a little bit darker shading to this part of the pumpkin, and especially down at the bottom where obviously less light is going to hit it. So I'm using my smallest brush. Whoops, got a little something going on there. And then I'm going to bring it up kind of in the middle along that ridge I was just talking about, where it has a little bit extra shape there. And then along this edge. So once I get that down, I can use a clean brush and just come back in and brush that out so that it shades in. So I'm kind of doing a 2-step process, as you'll notice. I'm adding pigment to the page, and while it's still wet and hasn't dried, real fast I'm cleaning my brush off, getting it slightly wet, and then coming back in and just kind of smudging it around with a clean, wet brush. And that's because if I were to smudge it around before I cleaned my brush, I'd just end up with a whole bunch of dark blue smudged around. Oh, you guys, oh, it's stickers. Miss Leslie says it's stickers. Okay, I'm going to see if I can see them on another page here. Let's see if I can see comments coming through like this. It's interesting. I can see some things, but not everything comes through to StreamYard. All right, let's see what I can see here. I'm not seeing your stickers. I'm sorry. Oh, sad. Well, I'll have to come out and try to see them later. I wonder if they came through. Oh, maybe I can. I don't know. It's a little hard to see all of those. Oh, well. Okay, well, I'll try to watch them as I see them come in. Hi, Eric. Thanks for being on Instagram. That's fun. Come. And let me make sure I can see other comments. Yeah. Leslie says later. You guys must have found like pumpkins. You should tell me what you're posting because I can't see them on the thingy. I'll have to see them later. Alrighty. Let me grab my reference photo again. So as we go around here, you're almost doing the same process over and over again, but just watch the shadows and add those darker shadows in as you go. So kind of along like this, and then fade them in on the side. So I've switched to my bigger brush for this part here because I'd like to be able to move a little faster, and the smaller brush just doesn't hold as much ink. Like that. And then I can do that again on the next one, just coming into that little crease. And then down here by this leaf, I'm going to give it a little bit more shadow because I want that to show that leaf is kind of creating a little shadow back there. And be careful not to fill in all your little highlights that you left. I've got some white space here and there that I'm leaving, and I want to make sure I don't fill that in. Whoops. Sorry, you guys on Facebook are getting your camera in the way. All right. Twyla says, so helpful to just watch before I try to paint. I'm picking up so much more. Oh, yay. I'm so glad, Twyla. Thank you for the feedback. Which painting have you enjoyed the most? I know you've worked on a couple of them. Tammy says it's raining there. Well, you probably have rainier weather than we do right now. We have had rain lately, but that is not happening right now. So hopefully we'll end up with a dry day. Eric says that looks like it could be a heart leaf on the bottom right. Yeah, actually, it is pretty heart-shaped. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case for every pumpkin leaf, but when I looked up photos of them, they are kind of like a heart shape. So yeah, way to notice that. Okay, I'm adding a little bit darker pigment there. And I'm gonna also kind of come around the back as well. If you don't have the Komorebi Mozart watercolor set, just make sure you have a teal color and a little bit of green added to it. And that's what I keep mixing up and using for this. So I'm mixing up just a little bit more. And I mix it with the bigger brush and then switch to the smaller brush, like I said. That really helps. Kind of that happy medium between blue, teal, turquoise color, and like a more green teal. Okay, and then I can just kind of touch and add a darker shade of teal in those little corners. Look how that just, it fades out on its own. It's like the beauty of watercolor. Ah, so nice. So this is also the frustration of watercolor, according to some people, because they find that the water just goes everywhere, but you can direct it. So the way that you direct your water is you decide where it's going to go first. If you feel like your ink is going everywhere, your pigment is going everywhere, basically you wet a space first, and then the pigment will only follow where it's already wet. It's very interesting. I'm sure it has something to do with the positive and negative charge on like a molecular level or something like that, but I have no idea. Anyway, it just follows the path of the water that's already there. And so you can kind of paint like it's acrylic if you are just painting watercolor straight onto dry paper. But if you paint wet in wet, it will just follow where you already put the water. So if you don't want your paint running all over the page, don't wet that part of the page. It's kind of amazing. It just does it. Let's see. Twyla says the pickup truck. Oh, she liked the pickup. I really liked it too. Now, Twyla, you did yours blue, right? You went ahead and did a blue one. I know that, let's see, I think it was Anita that did hers red. She loves red, so I'm pretty sure she decided to do hers red. Did anybody else do a red pickup or another color? I love when you guys take it and do it your own way. That's pretty cool. Also, just a tip, if you'd like a really cute go-to tracer to just have on hand all the time for different seasons, hang on to that pickup tracer because you could just trace the truck only. I tell my Artworthy journalers all the time, do not take the tracers at face value. Like, think about how else they could be used, because we get monthly tracers in the Artworthy Journal Club, and they oftentimes can be used in so many different ways. So that pickup truck, save that tracer, definitely save it, because you could fill the truck with other things. Like you could put presents in the back of it for Christmas time. You could put little flowers in the back of it for springtime. You could have hearts kind of piling up in the back of it for Valentine's Day, or shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day. You could paint the truck a different color for 4th of July and have a flag hanging out the back or something. So hang on to that tracer because it is very versatile. I love to have a truck tracer. It's very, very versatile. Oh, Lydia says, I'm loving the pastel sage green pumpkins everywhere and love today's doodle. I am so glad that you're watching, and she's watching on YouTube. Super great. So if you don't know, I'm broadcasting to 3 different platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So I'm so glad that I have somebody on each one of them. That's really fun. Twyla says, yes, blue. Grandpa had a blue pickup we hauled hay with. No kidding. What kind of, do you remember what kind of truck it is? Like what model it was? That's really cool, Twyla. How exciting. Yeah, I was pretty sure you painted it blue. I saw a ton of trucks come through after we did that doodle. A lot of people enjoyed that, so I wasn't sure if that was yours or not. Very cool. All right, so we're giving it just a little bit more shading back here, and you can tell I'm adding darker blue closer to the stem of the pumpkin because it's kind of darker down there by the stem, obviously. So I'm going to kind of blur that out and let that fade out. And I'm going to go ahead and let the pumpkin kind of rest a little bit, let it start to dry, because I want to come in and paint wet on dry in a little bit. So while that's drying, I'm going to work on the little leaf. And this little leaf is going to be inspired by the other greens that we've used. We haven't used a real strong green so far, but on two of the paintings here, you can see we had that sage green from, I think it's actually, it's called olive green in the palette. It's number 45. And so we're going to use that green instead of probably the closer to that true green that we would normally have on a pumpkin leaf. And that's okay because we're making it consistent across the whole painting. And I am mixing in a little bit of true green, which is probably either peak green or brilliant green, just to deepen it just a little bit. But mostly it's that olive green. And I'm just gonna fill this in. Now, because I have white space on the pumpkin, I'm gonna leave some white space on this little leaf as well. So basically, I'm just gonna act like I'm bad at coloring things in and leave some little spots of white. And that's gonna make sure that I don't have like a perfectly solid leaf and then a not quite so solid pumpkin. It'll just make it make more sense in your brain. This little leaf is bent in half, kind of. So hopefully I can kind of portray that there. And then I'm going to switch to my smaller brush using the same color. I'm going to use my Master's Touch brush, which is a little bit smaller, and use that to actually add some of this green to the stem of this pumpkin. I want to start with green up here because I know I'm going to add darker colors later, but I'd like for it not to be just solid brown or something. And then also on these vines down here that are coming out from under the pumpkin. Oops, make sure Instagram can see. Oh, yes. Okay, so Twyla says she thinks it was a Ford. It had 3 on the tree and it's still in the barn. Wow, that's so cool. If you ever think to take a picture of it, that would be amazing to see. Wow, that's really cool. Yes, Miss Leslie says she loves my deviled egg platter paint palette. Yes, and you know who got that for me or picked it up for me? I had Terry Watson, who is such a great thrifter, go and search for one for me, and it's worked wonderfully ever since. Also, a few of the ladies have actually picked up some of those too. Some of the Artworthy journalers have picked some up. Okay, as I'm coming to these finer curly ends, I'm going to switch to my smallest brush. Whoops, make sure it doesn't have a piece of fuzz on the end of it. And then I'm turning my painting so that my hand can make those smooth lines easily. And I'm just going to paint in these little curly things. And I'll probably come back and do them a little darker, but this will give me a good start. I also need to do the ones up here. A little bit here. And then there's another one over top of the pumpkin on the left-hand side that I will paint in later. But that'll give me a good layer of color to start with. Look at that. I love this pumpkin. Oh, and you've had a platter like that for a long time, Miss Leslie. That's awesome. Yeah, when I got it, I thought, oh, do I want to use this for paint? It's so pretty. Maybe I want to just, you know, save it for actually using for food. But after I started using it for paint, it was so cool to have something that fancy every day to use. And it just makes it like you really want to just sit down and paint. And, you know, when that's something you do every day, it's nice to have something pretty. The Artworthy journalers have found out I love to encourage you to use things that are pretty because the prettier they are, the more joy they bring to you, and they encourage you to do your artwork more often. So we even have fancy watercolor cloths that come in the welcome kit for the Artworthy Journal Club. And I picked those up because not only do they work really well, but they're like a blush pink color and they're really pretty and they make you happy. And anyway, I really like them, obviously. Okay, I'm adding even more shading to this pumpkin now. And I'm going to just especially accentuate the deepest blues in the little valley or whatever you want to call it that goes down toward the stem. So I'm going to add some shading that way and kind of use my small brush to let it fade out. And I'm letting my small brush give it some brush strokes because pumpkins kind of have those little stripy things going on anyway, so that kind of works. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of dark green and a little bit of brown because I want this teal to start to deepen even more. So now I'm adding brown to the teal that I already have on my palette. And I'm going to start adding that in just a little bit more here. And then we're going to come along the left-hand side of this pumpkin and make that even darker. And on the left-hand side here, I should say the left-hand side of the bump, not just the pumpkin. And we're going to start using this darker teal all the way around. We can even use it kind of down by that stem a little bit more. And kind of looking up at my reference photo, there's little bumps at the top of these. So that's going to help right there. Okay, see the little dimple? You can kind of make a little dimple like that. Do the same thing over here. And the same thing over here. Because these pumpkins have multiple little dimples that go down the middle of those sections. Look how cute! I love that. So I'm just kind of fading that out into the rest of the blue using a clean wet brush again. Clean wet brush right here. Right here. And if you guys are following along, let's see, leave a, what's something random you could leave in the, leave a candy corn emoji in the comments if you're actually following along. I'd love to see who is painting with me. Okay. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any comments. All right, so we're coming back in here with this darker teal, which again has that blue added to it, and I can kind of bring that little dimple up from the bottom too, like that. Give it a little bit more going on there. And then down here, down by this leaf, I want to darken this up quite a bit because that leaf is going to be creating some shadow down there. So I can darken that up quite a bit. Just like that. All right, I need to mix up some more color. So that's again the azurite blue. Oops. Azurite blue mixed with peak green. You can also use brilliant green at this point because it's a little darker and we are going darker. So whatever you have that's kind of a blue and a green, mix those together until you get a good deep greenish teal color. And then I'm adding a little bit of black to that to darken it up because we are going darker and darker on this painting. Right, and we're getting to the point where we're not going to need very many more layers. All right, so let's go ahead and add a darker shade of that teal down into these little cracks and crevices here in the pumpkin. I'm going to flip this over again because I like to pull towards me when I'm doing these kinds of lines. And then I'm just going to fade those out using a clean wet brush again. I'm kind of scrubbing it, you can tell. I'm scrubbing it back and forth to let it fade in to the rest of the painting, like that. And then I can go behind this little curly thing. And then kind of fade that out into the rest of the pumpkin. And then I can put some of this darker teal back here as well. I especially want behind this curly vine to be darker just because it's going to make that stand out a little bit more. So I'm using a little bit more teal there. Now, as I create these darker shadows, what I want to do is make sure they're becoming less teal, like more muted, so basically has more black in it. And that just keeps it from ending up like more vibrant. Sometimes you can just add more pigment to it and it just doesn't really darken it. It just gives it more pigment, makes it more vibrant, which defeats the purpose. You're trying to create a shadow, not something brighter. So that's why I add black or brown or something like that to the palette. And that mutes it quite a bit. Okay, and I'm adding even more black now, just kind of emphasize those darker areas. And now we're just going to carry that same blackish teal all the way around. And I'm pulling away from myself, kind of flicking away with my brush. And so it's easier for me to just turn the painting rather than trying to angle my hand a different direction. I haven't really worked on the left side of the pumpkin very much, but it kind of looked good right off the bat, so I didn't want to mess with it too much. Okay, I'm adding even more black to my teal, which might be kind of surprising, but I've got some good deep shadows here, so I really want to have a black that can emphasize those really well, especially down here by this leaf. Definitely want to have the shadows look right. And they get smaller and smaller. So as you add darker colors, you're adding less and less of those colors to the painting itself. You don't need to add a lot. So you can tell as I get darker and darker, I'm just barely adding any. But it does still make a difference. Even though it is a tiny bit, it's still, your eye can still see that, and it does bring that color down. Also, you know, it makes those bright areas of the painting pop, like I've said before. Just make sure you're being really sparing with the dark shades of teal. And look, see, I can just barely touch this. And that gives it, that's enough, you know? Just enough. Doesn't have to be a lot. And then I'm also going to come up here underneath this leaf. So we've got the same kind of thing going on here. Got some shadows being created by that vine. So I want to make sure I'm filling that in with some darker teal as well. Oh, nobody could find a candy corn emoji? Ah, bummer. So you'll have to give me just like a corn emoji or something if you're following along. So that's good. Anita's following along. Great. I'm so glad to hear that. Awesome. Thank you for following along. And those of you that are on Instagram should tell me if you were able to download the tracer from my bio. I did put the link there, so I just want to know if it's working and you were able to see that. So see how I'm adding just a little bit of shadow in this area? That's giving it more depth where that leaf is. Look how forgiving these natural paintings are, like anything from nature. Fruits and vegetables and pumpkins and all that stuff. They're so forgiving. They look good regardless, it seems like. I really like to paint them. I love, love, love to paint fruit from the garden or something like that. They're just really forgiving. They're not overwhelming. And if you're slightly off, they don't really look bad, no matter what you do. I'm trying to decide if I should darken this up a little bit. Sometimes if you darken it too much, it gets rid of the crispness of the edge, but I think it can be a little darker here. Maybe just a little bit. You can kind of step back, look at your painting, come back to it. If you feel like you're adding too many layers, give it a few minutes, let it dry, kind of come back and look. Sometimes it's already where it needs to be and you don't need to add anything else. All right, that's looking pretty good, I think. I might want to go darker on that little edge there. I like for the place where it's sitting on its little base to be nice and dark. Just makes sense that there's going to be less light down there. Just like that. I'm going to kind of use a clean, wet brush and sweep that up further like that. And I can also use it to kind of smooth out the edges like that. All right, I'm going to mix up a little bit more paint. How are you guys liking this so far? You should tell me if you guys like the teal or if you would have preferred seeing an orange pumpkin. You never know, depending on how many comments I get, I might consider doing both. Yeah, which one do you like better? Does anybody use teal in their fall decor or some other unusual color? I do. You guys know I do because I've done a whole demo on fall decor. Last year I did that, so you can go check out the replay if you want to see that. There was a lot of fall decor happening, and I showed you guys my front porch and some of the decor I made for indoors, and just lots of fun stuff. I love teal, and so my fun challenge is to figure out how to use teal for every holiday, even though it's not really the color of that holiday. So even for fall, I used teal. It was really fun. Bonnie says she loves the teal pumpkin. Oh, good. I'm so glad you like it. It's so unique, you know, to have a teal pumpkin. It's just so cool. Okay, you can tell I'm giving it an extra bit of shading right here. There's a little bit too much white going on this side, so I think I'm going to just bring this around right here. Kind of smudge out some of that. It's a little harsh. There we go. That'll help a little bit. All right, this is getting about to where I want it. I don't want to overdo it. I am going to come in just a little bit more on the pumpkin itself up here, where the stem is. Just give it that good deep shading. I love to get it nice and deep there. And I think that's pretty much where I want it. So I'm going to compare to our teal truck. Here's what our teal truck is looking like, and here is the teal pumpkin. So you can tell the teal truck has some good dark shading in it, and I want to make sure that's matching that. So I can come just a little bit darker, a little bit more black, kind of in all those little creases. And it's like even less, just a tiny bit, just a touch. A touch here and a touch here and there. Yeah, and that's probably all we need as I come back and do a little bit more. It's like you can just keep going and going. I'm going to get a little bit with black because I see I can go a little bit more black right there. Just a little bit. A little bit there, a little bit there. We're almost done. I think that does it. Alrighty, good. Okay, so now we're going to work on the green leaves again. I'm going to work on those green leaves. Alrighty. I'm so glad you guys like the pumpkin. Looks very special, like silver, at least the color on my screen. Oh, really? Wow. Anita says orange and Terry says orange. Okay, so we have some people voting for orange pumpkins. How fun. Are you guys painting an orange pumpkin or are you painting it blue as you follow along? I don't know if Terry's following along. I know Anita's trying to. Yeah, you should tell me whether you decided to do it teal or orange. Alrighty, we're going to come back and do a little bit more of the leaf and finish that area up. So again, it's that olive green, number 45. I'm going to spin my palette around so I can see. And we're going to grab that, pull it over into the palette just a little bit more. And make sure I have quite a bit of that to work with. And the leaf doesn't have to be as involved as the rest of the painting by any means. But we do want to match some of the shading and depth. Okay, so we're going to go darker kind of here in the center of the leaf. Let that kind of fade out into the edge of the leaf, and I can use a clean, so here's that same technique again. I'm adding the pigment first, then I'm getting my brush wet and clean, and while that is still wet, I'm just kind of sweeping it out to the edge again, so that it doesn't end up with a real harsh line right there. Kind of want to avoid my lines being really harsh. And while that's wet, I can touch it again with some more pigment, let that fade out. Look at that. I love watercolor so much. Look at it do that. Isn't that cool? Ah, I love watercolors. They're so pretty. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? You can't do that with acrylic. Okay, you can do that with acrylic if you're really, really good. But this just does it on its own. It's amazing. Okay, Anita says, I did steal LOL out of my comfort zone, LOL. I love the double LOL. Terry's just watching at the moment. Oh, thanks, Miss Leslie. She says, nice technique. Yeah, it's like really easy. Basically a combination of wet and wet, but just knowing that you can use a clean brush to push that color around is super, super nice. And you learn to do that as you're painting. You don't think about it, but it actually is really good to know. Yeah, so I'm glad that's helpful. Hi, Pam. Way to be watching on Instagram. How are you doing? Alrighty. Again, here's that pigment I've just added. Now I'm going over here and cleaning my brush. You can't see that, but I'm cleaning my brush. And now I have a slightly wet brush that I'm going to use to pull that pigment down. And just kind of pull it down into the rest of the little leaf. I want to get the edges of that leaf faded in pretty well, because I want to be able to see the shape of that leaf. So I'm going to make sure the edges are dark. You can see I'm just kind of pulling in. Like I said, you guys can actually see this pumpkin bigger than me. It's smaller in real life than it is on the screen. So a lot of the detail you're seeing isn't even really going to show up in person. So I'm just being kind of like, oh, okay, I'll add a little here, add a little there, but it doesn't have to be really, really detailed here. Okay, so I'm kind of giving it some wrinkles around the edge. You can see I'm pulling in like that, giving it some shape. Feel free to do something like that. I'm veering a little bit away from the olive green though, so I'm going to, not olive, yes, olive green. So I'm going to go back and grab some of that because I want to make sure I'm not getting too far off my palette, and I'm just going to bring some of that more yellowy olive green back in. It's interesting to use olive in a pumpkin leaf because they are really rich in color. They have that nice deep green, regular true green, I guess, the way to say that. Okay, I'm going to let that little leaf sit there for a little bit, and we're going to work on this other little leaf and try to make it match it color-wise. So I'm using my liner brush from Master's Touch, which is the Hobby Lobby brand. And by the way, I'm not sponsored by Hobby Lobby. I just happen to shop there a lot. Like a ton. Hey, Pam. Oh, she says watching. Okay, good. I'm glad you're watching. Are you planning to do this little pumpkin too? You are such a good artist. I can't wait to see all of yours. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of that darker green. I added a little bit of brilliant green to this. And I'm going to put it up under the bottom side of that leaf as well. It's harder to see these leaves against the pumpkin because they're almost the same tone. They're a different color, but they're almost the same tone. So you'll notice as I go, I'm going to add more shading around the edges just to actually make them show up. Because if I don't, you won't be able to see them. Like, you can see them, but they're not very vivid. Okay, same with the stem. I'm going to add a little bit more green. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to add brown. Well, I think I will. I'll add a little bit of brown to the stem, but not very much. Because I'm really liking the stem green. It looks very soft and pretty. What do you guys think? Add a little tan, maybe just a slightly bit of tan to the stem to make it more brown. All right, we're going to come in with this smallest brush. Now I'm going to be almost totally with this smaller brush from here on. And I'm going to start with the olive green that I already have in the palette and add some dark brown, which is number 52, and a little bit of black, because I need to deepen that up, and that will allow me to accentuate the edges of this leaf and all that good stuff. So here's my little leaf. I'm going to come up along the bottom edge. It's kind of like we're outlining, but you really want to make sure your lines are gentle and not harsh, because if they're too harsh, it'll just look like a coloring book, like you outlined it perfectly, and you don't want that. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on this little vine. I'm going to give it some shadow underneath. And then as I come up around here, my vine is going to turn into a little teeny tiny line, so I just need to follow that line basically. Like that. My little vine. And I'm going to need to turn this the other way to do the other one. I'm just coming in with that same darker olive green that I've added a ton of black to. And I'm not done adding color to those vines, but I want to get this black deeper shadow done first before I do anything else, just to get it visible. Ta-da! Look at that little curly Q, isn't that cute? Also up here, I'm going to add a little bit of this darker green up underneath the curl, underneath here, up around the left-hand side, just kind of those darker shaded areas again. And then on those edges so that it can see, or our eyes can see it. Up along the bottom edge of this curl right here. Thank you, Bonnie. She says, so pretty. I love that. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this. Every time I kind of look up at the screen, I can see it more from a distance, and it's just like, wow, I like how it's coming together. I'm so glad you guys like it too. It's really fun to work on a painting that you're really enjoying the result of it. Okay. Can't wait to see you guys, your versions of it. Make sure you post it so I can see it, because I would love to see it. Okay, there's our little curly Q for this top part. And remember I mentioned there was another curly vine over here on the tracer. You will see on the tracer right there, there's a little curly one right there. So I'm going to try to add that in. I'm going to turn my pumpkin upside down and use my reference photo and try to add it in where I drew it in earlier. I'm using almost straight black for this one because it's hard to see otherwise. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit more pigment and come right back in and go over it again because it's real faint. Just like that. Just being careful to make sure I don't, make that look weird or something. Okay, there we go. We're almost done. I'm going to add a little bit more black to this leaf over here. And I just noticed there's some weird white space showing right there. I did leave some white space, but that's not where I left it. So I'm going to fill that in with some shadow. And then Terry says, love it. Oh, yay. I'm so glad you're liking it. Yay. And then a little bit on the inside of this leaf. A little tiny bit of shadow. on the edges, kind of where the leaf is folding. That's going to give it some more shadows there too. And then I'm going to come up along the edge of this leaf, turn it upside down. And with the tip of the brush, I'm just going to come along the edges of that leaf. And this is going to help the leaf stand out from the pumpkin, which is really important because they're almost the same tone, very similar in tone. Or value. I'm not sure which is the right word for that now that I think of it. Maybe value is the better word. Like I said, I'm not a pro. I just really like to paint. So I'm so glad you guys like to watch. Because I don't always have the right words. Sometimes blob is the most logical word I can think of. So I'm just like, draw a blob here. And that works for a lot of you guys. So I'm glad it works. You know, doesn't really matter as long as you're having fun. Because like I said, we don't do fine art. We do fun art here. Alrighty, there's the edge of that leaf. I think that's looking pretty good. Gonna kind of smooth it out like that. Like that. There we go. Maybe just a little bit. All right. Lastly, I want to add a little bit more color to the vines because I just noticed they're real light. So I'm going to come back with that olive green once again. And it's kind of mixed in with the other green, but just a good green that I can fill in with a lot of pigment, not very watery. And just do this vine a little bit better. A little bit more green. This one a little bit more green. That kind of olivey green that we've been using. Make sure it's nice and visible with that good color. And then I think I will, just add that green in a little bit. I think I will add a tiny bit of tan because we have so much tan in the other paintings. I don't want to leave that out of this painting. So it's, it's funny, you can add just the slightest bit of color and your brain sees it even if you don't see it. So I'm going to add a little bit of tan to this painting in the stem up here. That'll warm it up also. Just give it a little bit more warmth. And the tan I'm using is yellow ochre, and I'm kind of mixing it with whatever oranges I have on my palette. So I'm not being super particular about it. There's so little of it that it almost doesn't matter. I'm just going to add a little bit of tan to the stem up here, a little bit to the underside of this leaf, and even to the front of this leaf. Just warm it up just a bit. Just a bit. Get a little bit more. So see that just that little bit of color makes it not so flat, warms it up, and ties it in with the other paintings a little bit better. Look at that. Oh, I just love that. Oh, so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit more here. A little bit here. Ah, I'm really liking this. I'm really liking this. There we go. Okay, I think I'm done, y'all. What do you think? Alrighty, that is day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of our October Doodle a Day challenge. I hope you guys like that. And if you do, give it a good thumbs up or a heart. And what would be super awesome is if you went ahead and shared it on your page on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever your platform is. Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you so much, all of you guys, for watching. And please continue to watch these Doodle a Day. We're going to have a lot more coming, and I keep taking requests. So please tell me if you think of something that you'd like to see. And it's very, very possible I will do it here live. So let's just compare it to this truck one more time. You can see how we tied in that color. Here's the truckload of pumpkins, and here is our little pumpkin on today's doodle. I really, really like it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I did, and can't wait to see yours. Please go ahead and finish it and post it. I can't wait to see it. Alrighty, thank you all for joining me, and I will see you again tomorrow. God bless you. I'll see you then. Bye.